Now I can do Torah to show him how much I appreciate what he's done for me.
Hallelujah.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh. In other words, a Torah keeping without blood sacrifices is null and void in Yahweh's heavenly courts. Because Yahweh said in Leviticus 17:11, I have given the blood of atonement on the altar to make an atonement for your soul. It is the blood that makes atonement. The Jewish people call the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. But there is no atonement. And the Orthodox Jews know they have no atonement, which is why they take a chicken and they swing it around their heads and call it the ceremony of karpas, because they know that the blood of the chicken, they say, Zotli kepara, Zotli kepara, this is my blood, this is my blood. The only problem is nobody gave them the authority to take a chicken and have the blood flow down their beard. It had to be on the altar, in the temple, in Yerushalayim, one day a year, in the Holy of Holies, and they don't have the authority to buy a chicken at the supermarket and let the blood drip down their beard. If they think Yeshua is a Christian God, then why do they take the chicken in kaparas and let the blood drip down their whole being? Because they know without blood there's no forgiveness of sin, and they go to Shul on Yom Kippur, but they have no Kippur. But in Yeshua, that problem is solved. We go to Shul on Yom Kippur and we have the blood. It's provided for us in His Son, Yeshua. And we respond to that message. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Now Yevrim 9 tells you of the whole ceremony that took place. But it's a misunderstood chapter in the Word. When the tabernacle stood, the temple stood, what happened there daily? Daily sacrifices. The Ruach HaKodesh was showing that Mashiach sacrifice had not been what? Revealed. As long as the temple stood, it showed that the final sacrifice what? Had not come. Because if the sacrifice could remove sin from the people of Israel, then after one Yom Kippur, the annual sacrifice would have stopped. But because the annual sacrifice took place year after year after year, proved that the final sacrifice, the goal of the Torah, hadn't come. Does this make sense? Why did the high priest go into the Holy of Holies every year? Because he knew the final sacrifice hadn't come, and every year by him going into the Holy of Holies, the Kadosh HaKadoshim, there was an annual remembrance that sin hasn't been forgiven. We got to go back to Abba Yahweh because sin hasn't been forgiven. Amen? The Ruach HaKodesh was showing us that the Mashiach hadn't been revealed. As long as the temple stood, we remembered that the Mashiach had not been revealed. Once Mashiach had been revealed, what happened? Yahweh had no more need for the temple. He allowed it to what? To be destroyed. Remember we learned on Thursday all that weird stuff that started happening in 30 CE, the year Yeshua died? Remember? The doors would swing open by themselves. The red cord that would turn white no longer turned white. The lot for Yahweh, instead of showing up annually in the right hand, showed up in the left hand. Remember we learned all that on Yom Kippur? But now I want to appeal to you in both the Aramaic and the Greek. The Aramaic was the original language of the New Testament, not Greek. It was Aramaic, which is a sister language to Hebrew. Very good. Of course, it's a Jewish document. It was written by 12 shlichim, 12 apostles, who were all Israelites. Now let's read Hebrews 9:1. Now I'm going to blow you away. Well, I may not blow you away yet. I'm still setting the table. Then, truly the first, take out that word brit, covenant does not appear in verse 1. That word brit, sorry Wilbur, does not appear in verse 1. In the original Aramaic, it says, truly the first, blank. Cross out that word, please, brit. I made a mistake. It does not belong there. It is not in any of the Aramaic or the Greek manuscripts. Zero, none. Take out that word, please cross it out. I made a mistake. I corrected it in the 3rd edition. Truly the first also had regulation. The first what? The first whatever that is disappearing, becoming old, and aging. Back to verse 13. Hebrews 9:1 must match Hebrews 8:13. The first that is old, the first that is decaying, the first that is aging, the first that is disappearing. And then here it says, the first also had regulations of worship and an earthly kadosh place, holy place. Hello? The word covenant, again, to reiterate, is not there. The word first, in Greek, protos, I'm going to use the Greek because it's a little bit easier here than the Aramaic. The Greek word protos, the first, is speaking of something. It really is not speaking of the priesthood in the temple completely. Why? Because they're going to reappear in the millennium. Isn't that one of the things you guys have always wondered about? Why do the sacrifices reappear in the Atid Lavo, in the millennial kingdom, right? Because there's going to be a priesthood, there's going to be a temple. So, yes, it's true in the immediate context. What is disappearing is the priesthood and the temple, but that's not a forever disappearing. Something is going to disappear forever. Whatever the writer of Rosh Hashanah is talking about is going to disappear forever. Yes, temporarily the priesthood and the temple will disappear for a few thousand years until Yeshua returns, right? But Rav Shaul is speaking of something that will disappear, decay, and never return. That something, listen, contained earthly regulations of how to approach Yahweh. Yom Kippur, sacrifice this way. Bull, goat for our own, goat for his house. Sukkot, 7 days of Sukkot every day, 7 rams, 6 rams, 5 rams, grain offering, drink offering, various sundry offerings that were given at least twice a day. Shacharit and Ma'ariv. Jewish Israel added the middle worship service, Mincha, which is not in the Bible. In the ancient temple, write this down, in the ancient temple there were only 2 daily services, the morning and the evening, Shacharit and Ma'ariv. The middle service, where Jewish people pray 3 times a day, Mincha, is strictly rabbinical, is not found anywhere, and was not practiced in the Torah. Okay? Now, let's continue. The first something, check out that word Brit. Covenant is not there, my mistake. The first something had a way to approach Yahweh, and it had an earthly kadosh place. Verse number 2, for there was a tent of meeting. That was the first area, where the menorah was, the table, the shulchan hapanayim, the lechem of the Shekhinah was there, which is called the Makom Kadosh. So notice, something is disappearing, decaying, and becoming old, but that something had an earthly kadosh place. Right? The first. What is the Greek word for first? Protos. Correct. In Aramaic, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's Rishonah, Rashanaha, a form of Rishon. Okay? The first place, the first something had regulations of divine worship. But the priesthood and the sacrificial system are not the protos itself. The priesthood and the sacrificial system and the divine order of worship are functions of the protos. Don't lose me now. Those things were functions of the first. We're going to find out what the first is. Right? Those things, the temple, the priesthood, were functions of the first. It can't be the priesthood and the temple itself, because that is going to reappear at the end of the age and the dawn of the Atid Lavo. That can't be it. There's something else that will never return, that will never come back. Now, look at verse 2, Ivrim 9:2. For the tabernacle was prepared, there was a tent of meeting. There we go. The outer area, or the protos area, I'm using the Greek. And then the protos area, the first area, was called the Makom Kadosh, the holy place. Write it down. What was the protos called? The Makom Kadosh, the holy place. That was the first area, the holy place, the Makom Kadosh, called the Makom Kadosh. Had the menorah, the shulchan, the lechem of Shekhinah, so forth and so on. I want you to notice that the temple, first the tabernacle, and then the temple on Har Moriah, Mount Moriah, and Yerushalayim, was divided into 2 main regions. Can you get that? 2 main regions. Can you get that? 2 main regions. Can you get that? 2 main regions. 2 main regions. The Makom Kadosh and the Kadosh HaKedoshim, the Holy of Holies, where only the high priest went in on Yom Kippur once a year to make blood atonement for himself and the nation. And if a Jew or an Israelite has no blood atonement, they are not eternally forgiven. They may be Jewish, but they're not forgiven Jewish. I'd rather be forgiven Jewish than just be Jewish.
Amen.
Would you like to pray about that one?
Oh, no. Absolutely not.
You know it for a fact, right? So basically the temple was divided into two regions. The Kadosh place, Makom Kadosh, and the Kadosh HaKadoshim, the Protos, and the second place. Now listen, the second place in Greek is called, and we'll get to this in a second here. Well, yeah, let's jump down to verse 3. And after the second veil, the area of the tent of meeting, which is called the what? Kadosh HaKadoshim, or the Holy of Holies. First, second. Behind the first veil was the what, Tehillah? Behind the first veil was the Makom Kadosh. Behind the second veil was the what? Kadosh HaKadoshim. So we're talking about two areas in Greek for the sake of ease, even though the New Testament was written in Aramaic. I'm going to use the term that you're familiar with, protos and deutros. Deutros. Protos and deutros. Deutros, as in Deuteronomy. What does Deuteronomy mean? It is a Greek word meaning the second recitation of the law. Nomos, law, Deuto, second. It is the Romans of the Torah. It is the recitation of the basics of the faith given, the Torah given in Shemot. Exodus, it's recited a second time prior to Moshe's death, and thus it is called Deutos, second, Nomos, law, Deuto, Nomar, Ronomy. Facile, see? Simple, right? Now, so the temple was divided into the first and the second place. What was the first place called? Win, place, and show? No. What was the first place called? Got to get your head out of OTB and into the things of Yahweh. If you're a New Yorker, you know what OTB is. Off-track bananas. As in off-track betting. Lost a lot of money there. Lost a lot of teeth and hair there, too. Where was I? First and second. Protos and Deuto. And Deuteros. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. First and second. Two regions. Read this carefully. The writer of the book of Hebrews is making an analogy which refers to the outer sanctuary as the protos, the outer one. The inner sanctuary, or the Kadosh HaKadoshim, he calls what? The Deuteros, or the second. Look at 9:3. Look at Ephraim 9:3. After that was the second veil, or the Deuteros veil. First there was what? The first, protos, go to Hebrews 9:1. I'm trying to help you what's old, decaying, and ready to disappear. I'm trying to help you. Verse 1, the protos was called the Kadosh place. The Deuteros, after the second veil, the Deuteros veil, was called the Kadosh HaKadoshim. Now I want you to jump down to verse 9. All this stuff about protos, Deuteros, first place, second place, Greek, Aramaic, Aramaic, why? Why? Well, the church says, the church has come to replace the Jews. The Jews rejected Christ. So God found a new bride. And got new Jews, Goyim, and he made Goyim the new Israel. Lying mama. Yahweh's not a polygamist, he's not a Mormon, he doesn't live in Salt Lake City. Yahweh always has one bride, Israel. And whoever has faith in Yahweh and his son is Israel. Whoever has no faith is not Israel. He's always had one bride, and he sends his son because he's the faithful bridegroom, even when his bride is faithless. Though we remain faithless, he remains faithful because he cannot deny himself. So the New Testament was given to regather and recollect and restore the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Yeshua said in Luke 19:10, I have come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I have come to seek and save that which was lost. The Ben Adam has come to seek and save that which was lost. In Matthew 15:24, he said, I only came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Are you born again? Are you a believer? Are you washed in the blood? You must be the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So Yeshua said, I didn't come for anybody else. Now, the church may be trying to recruit somebody else, but I didn't come for anybody else. He said, I have only come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. What does that make you? Israel. Well, brother, now slow down. That was before the cross. He only came for Israel before the cross. Now he loves everybody. I remember preaching in Harlem one year. I said, Yahweh loves the people of Israel. Oh, be quiet, preacher. He loves everybody. I'm like, yeah, but he came. He loves Israel. He loves the Jewish people. How can you be a Christian and not love the Jewish people? Be quiet. He just loves everybody. She was trying to tell me he loves everybody and it wasn't something special to be Israel. But it is something special to be Israel. Hello? You know why? Because it says that all who believe in Yeshua are the commonwealth and hold membership or citizenship papers in the commonwealth of Israel. For our citizenship is in the commonwealth of Israel, and the headquarters of the commonwealth of Israel is in the heavens, because our citizenship is in the heavens, from whence we look for the Savior, Mashiach Yeshua, who will fashion our vile, corruptible body and fashion it like unto his incorruptible body.
Amen.
So we're citizens of Israel on earth, but we're headquartered in heaven, not in Cleveland, Tennessee.
Get him. Hallelujah.
Or in Pasadena, California. Ouch, that one hurt. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Or man at 777 Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn. Now jump down to verse 9, Darrell. I want you to jump down to verse 9. Ephraim 9:9. Here's how we get what is old and ready to decay and aging. It's not the First Testament. It's not the Torah. It's not the blood. It's not even the temple. It's not even the priesthood. It's none of the above. The church lied to you, and that's why you've come out of it looking for the truth.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Talk to me.
Thank you, Abba.
Go ahead.
Oh, hallelujah.
Go ahead with the truth.
Ephraim 8:9. Look at that. Which was a parable. Which was a parable. The writer of Hebrews is not talking about diddly squat being done away with from the Torah, from the temple, from the priesthood, from anything that had to do with the eternal things of Israel, because Yahweh has not changed. Nothing he gave in the first covenant changes in the second covenant, except the altar of sacrifice and the guarantee of eternal life, not the forgiveness of sins for just one more year. That's the only thing that changed. That Yeshua has offered a better sacrifice. That's the only thing that changed. Now watch this. Verse 9. It was a parable. What? The protos, or the what? First place was a parable. Pay attention. The deuteros, or the second place, was a parable. The priesthood of the earthly sanctuary was a parable. The temple of the earthly sanctuary was a parable. Now is it beginning to make sense? Now I'm going to help you some more. I'm going to give you another clue. All right? And I'm not even James blonde-handed Bond. And I'll still give you clues. Okay? Some of you missed that. That's okay. It means you don't watch the news. Which was a parable, verse 9. Don't miss this, Tehillah. Because you're about to miss it, but I'm talking to you now so you don't miss it. So please don't miss it. But I knew you would have missed it if I wasn't talking to you now. But I am talking to you now. So please don't miss it. Because you could have missed it. If I hadn't been here today, you and others would have missed it. You see, I'm here now, you won't miss it. So we can go on now, because now I know you won't miss it. It was a parable for the time. then present.
I think he hit
The first place, the holy place, the protos, was a parable
Okay.
for the time then present. The Deuteros, or the Holy of Holies, or the Kadosh HaKedoshim, was a parable of the time not yet present.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you now. Okay. Yeah. Oh, man. I got it. Be a holy name. Yes. Hallelujah. Oh, man, that's awesome. Yes, that's awesome. That's awesome. Wow.
Hallelujah.
That is so awesome.
The entire temple was a parable
Yes.
of something else Yahweh wants to teach us in the Spirit. The holy place, the Holy of Holies, the priesthood. Not one replaces the other. The second has come, the first is done away. That whole building was speaking of something else. The first place, Protos, didn't speak of the Old Testament, and the Kadosh HaKadoshim speak of the second or the New Testament. Both, listen, now, don't listen now, but both,
That's right.
the first place and the second place, both were parables speaking of two time periods, because they weren't literally covenants. They were both parables of different time periods in Israel's history. Does it blow you away? Does it blow you away?
Come on, bring them on.
So the entire temple was a parable for then present, in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices that could not make the worshiper or the priest, the Levitical priest, the Kohanim, who did the service, perfect regarding their sin-benighted consciousness. Meaning, despite the sacrifices, despite the Kohanim who were serving and doing the service for Israel, neither the people of Israel or those doing the service or their gifts or their sacrifices can make the worshiper pure, perfect, and their conscience pure, because both represent something else. The very existence of the Kohanim and the altar and the two places, the Protos and the Deutros, represented something entirely, and the church doesn't have a clue what it represents, and they'll go to their grave not having a clue what it represents until they have the spirit of revelation, and they humble themselves under the mighty hand of Yahweh so he can exalt them in due season, and the people of Israel can stop perishing for the lack of knowledge. It's a parable. It's a metaphor. Allegory. Figure of speech. From the Brit Hadashah perspective, we don't look at that as the Old Testament. We look at that as a figure of the entire temple complex. A figure of speech speaking to us that there's a time and a second time. There's a time of sacrifice, and there's a time of reformation. There's a time, and there's a time to reform time in the end times and the coming of Yeshua, when everything will be restored and reformed. So the Protos represented that time, our time. What? If the Holy of Holies, and we're going to go into this a lot more, if the Holy of Holies is the Deuteros, and the holy place, or the Makom Kadosh, is the Protos represents this present world system, or the what? Old covenant. Then the Holy of Holies must represent the Deutros and the new covenant, but the new covenant not of this time, look, not of this present time, but of a future time. So whatever was in the Holy of Holies, Abraham, listen to me. Whatever was in the Holy of Holies spoke of a future time, a deuteros, a second time. But in order to reveal the second time and the coming of Mashiach, he has to end this age. The Olam Hazeh has to end, and the Olam Haba has to come in. I'll say that again. In order for the Olam Haba to come in, he has to end the Olam Hazeh. The whole thing on the temple, we got a whole bunch of Christians. You see? Look, it's right there in my Bible. You see? We're under grace. The law's been done away with. The commandments have been done away with. The Torah, look, right there. He did took away the first to establish the second. The first what? The first priesthood? The first temple? Sorry, they're going to pop up again in the end time when Yeshua returns. Haven't you read Ezekiel chapter 44 to 48? They're going to pop up again. How can something be done away with when it's going to pop up again? It's like a bag of laundry. You think you throw it in the closet, it's going to disappear, and the next day, popped up again. But you go around telling everybody, I done my laundry. Yeah, man. You come check it out. I done my laundry. The next day you open the closet, oh, there the ugly sucker's laundry again. Oh my, it even smells. Yesterday it was just bad. Now it's real bad. That's bad. Not bad, but bad. I'm talking to anybody here?
Amen.
So if you read Ezekiel chapter 44 to 48, you know the priest of the temple is going to pop up again in the last days. So that whatever took place, listen, in the protos, the first place, in the first veil, behind the first veil, corresponds to what? The present world, take notes, the present age, or the old covenant. The Kadosh HaKadoshim represents what? The world to come and the new covenant. Amen? Ordinarily, listen, Christian interpretation maintains that the entire tabernacle represented the Old Testament, which they equate with the Torah, and when the temple went bye-bye, the Torah went bye-bye. Isn't that the way we've been taught? That the whole temple, now you're not listening, yes you are, the whole temple represents the Old Testament, and that's a nice Christian way of saying the Torah, but they don't want to say that because it's not the in thing now, because the Nazarene Israelite movement is like spreading like wildfire.